Stop right there. You don't belong. A voice barks from the darkness. A teenager, startled, raises his hands, fear tightening his chest. The next sound isn't a question, it's a gunshot. This isn't some movie scene. It's a chilling reality that's played out in communities across America. We've all heard of neighborhood watch programs, right? They're supposed to be about neighbors looking out for neighbors, a collective effort to keep our streets safe. Extra eyes, a bit of shared vigilance, a friendly wave. That's the picture we usually get. But what happens when those good intentions take a dark turn? What happens when looking out becomes hunting down? When a flashlight turns into a weapon, and observation morphs into outright vigilantism? Tonight, we're diving deep into 3 real stories that prove the moment good intentions are twisted into self-appointed authority, the results can be not just tragic, but deadly. If you think the scariest thing on your block is the HOA fees or that suspiciously loud dog next door, just wait. You're about to hear how ordinary neighbors, driven by fear, bias, or a misguided sense of duty, became the very threat they claimed to be protecting their communities from. These are the terrifying times the neighborhood watch went horribly, catastrophically wrong. February 26, 2012, Sanford, Florida. It's a humid, drizzly evening, the kind where the air hangs heavy and a sudden chill can make you pull your hoodie a little tighter. 17-year-old Trayvon Martin, a typical high schooler, is walking back to his father's fiance's home. He's just made a quick trip to a 7-Eleven for some iced tea and a bag of Skittles. Everyday items, everyday errand. He pulls his hoodie up against the light rain, probably lost in thought, maybe listening to music. Meanwhile, George Zimmerman, the local neighborhood watch coordinator for the gated community of the retreat at Twin Lakes, is out in his SUV. He spots Trayvon. From his perspective, something about the young black man in the hoodie seems suspicious. He dials the non-emergency police line. His voice, captured on the chilling 911 recording, is hushed, laced with an almost predatory tension. "There's a real suspicious guy," he whispers, painting a picture of menace. "This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something." Zimmerman describes Trayvon's movements, his apparent lack of urgency, his hoodie, every detail feeding into a narrative of presumed criminality. The dispatcher, sensing the rising tension, clearly advises Zimmerman, "Okay, we don't need you to do that," meaning, don't follow him. But Zimmerman ignores the directive. He claims Trayvon is running, then he's not, then he's running again. He continues to pursue, fueled by a self-assigned mission, transforming from an observer to an active participant in a confrontation that was entirely avoidable. Within minutes, the two are face to face in a dimly lit walkway between townhouse rows, a space that would soon become a tragic landmark. What exactly transpired in those crucial moments? No witnesses saw precisely who initiated the physical altercation. Was it a verbal exchange that escalated? A push? A punch? The details remain fiercely debated, shrouded in the darkness and the chaos of a sudden, unexpected clash. What we do know, with horrifying certainty, is how it ended, with Zimmerman firing a 9mm handgun directly into Trayvon Martin's chest. The young man, just moments before carrying candy and a drink, lay dead in the grass, a mere 70 yards from the safety of his family's front door. When police finally arrive, Zimmerman claims self-defense, invoking Florida's controversial Stand Your Ground law. And astonishingly, they take him at his word. No immediate arrest, no drug test for Zimmerman, no weapon confiscated on the spot. Just a quick questioning and a release. This initial handling of the case would soon ignite a firestorm of nationwide outrage, fueled by the release of those chilling 911 tapes and the stark injustice of a young life cut short with seemingly no accountability. Protests erupted, becoming a powerful symbol of racial injustice and the dangers of unchecked vigilantism. People wore hoodies, carried bags of Skittles, and chanted, "I am Trayvon Martin," a defiant declaration of solidarity and a demand for justice. 6 long weeks later, under immense public pressure, a special prosecutor finally filed second-degree murder charges against Zimmerman. At trial, the defense meticulously constructed a narrative suggesting Trayvon had attacked Zimmerman, breaking his nose and slamming his head on concrete. They argued Zimmerman was in fear for his life, a central tenet of Stand Your Ground. After 16 hours of intense deliberation, the jury acquitted Zimmerman. The verdict sent shockwaves across the country, further deepening the divides and fueling conversations about race, justice, and self-defense laws. While the U.S. Department of Justice later reviewed the case for possible civil rights charges, they ultimately found insufficient evidence to prove Zimmerman had targeted Trayvon specifically because of his race. The aftermath of Trayvon Martin's death irrevocably reshaped neighborhood watch guidelines nationwide. The new mantra became clear: no firearms, no pursuit, and absolutely no direct contact with suspected individuals. The role was strictly redefined to observe and report only. Yet the damage was done. A boy was dead, a volunteer walked free, and millions of parents, particularly parents of color, were left to add the talk, the essential, heartbreaking conversation about hoodies, perceived danger, and how to navigate a world that might unfairly judge them, to their nightly routines. This wasn't just a local tragedy. It was a national reckoning, a stark reminder of how quickly good intentions can unravel into devastating consequences when fear, bias, and a loaded gun converge. Fast forward a few years to 2019. The tools of the Neighborhood Watch have evolved, moving from walkie-talkies and late-night patrols to something far more insidious: our phones. In a quiet, tree-lined subdivision just outside Denver, a black teenager named Elijah is doing a simple favor for his mom. He's scrolling through the Nextdoor app, hoping to find a post about a neighbor's missing cat. Instead, what he finds stops him cold. There, staring back at him from the screen, is his own yearbook photo. The caption beneath it reads, "Suspicious young man casing cars on Maple." His stomach drops. 43 comments a digital mob quickly follow. "Call the cops," one user types, immediately jumping to the worst conclusion. "He's probably on drugs," another chimes in, adding another layer of baseless accusation. "Keep your kids inside," warns a third, fanning the flames of fear. The comments pile up, each one amplifying the suspicion, each one contributing to a digital witch hunt targeting a kid who was just being a kid. The bitter irony? Elijah isn't casing cars at all. He lives just 2 doors down from the person who posted his photo. He's been a resident of that very neighborhood for 6 years. He's a talented varsity trumpet player, heading to band practice more often than not. And every Tuesday, he delivers groceries to Mrs. Chen down the street, a gesture of kindness that defines his character far more than any anonymous online accusation ever could. One neighbor, bless her heart, tries to defend him, posting a comment explaining that Elijah is a good kid and lives nearby. But her voice of reason is quickly buried under a deluge of "thank you for the heads up" reactions and further fear-mongering. The algorithm, designed to prioritize urgent posts, ensures that baseless fear trumps factual reassurance. The incident doesn't end there. A week later, the real-world consequences arrive on Elijah's doorstep. At 11 p.m., a knock. It's the police, Someone, presumably from the next-door thread, filed an anonymous tip claiming he planned to break into the community center. Officers questioned him for a tense 30 minutes, his younger sister watching wide-eyed from the hallway, absorbing the fear and confusion. No charges are filed, no apology is offered. But the incident leaves an indelible mark. Elijah becomes anxious, constantly checking the blinds every time a car slows on his street. A quiet fear, now a permanent resident in his young life. This isn't an isolated incident. Across the country, researchers are finding a disturbing pattern. Racially loaded posts spike on neighborhood apps within days of high-profile burglary stories, often fueled by fear and implicit bias. These platforms, marketing themselves as tools for community safety, inadvertently become echo chambers for unverified gossip and prejudice. Algorithms, designed to reward engagement, push these urgent and often sensationalized reports to the top, regardless of their accuracy. Ring's Neighbors app, for example, faced significant backlash and had to ban the phrase black male in crime alerts after civil rights groups exposed how often it appeared without any corroborating evidence, effectively turning the app into a digital platform for racial profiling. The psychological toll of this constant digital surveillance and potential for wrongful accusation is measurable. A 2021 study from the University of California linked prolonged exposure to racialized surveillance chatter on these apps with increased cortisol levels and sleep loss among targeted teens. These platforms promise to deter crime, yet ironically, burglary rates often remain flat in neighborhoods that post daily. What they do achieve, however, is a pervasive climate of suspicion, fear, and division. For victims like Elijah, seeking justice is an uphill battle. Attorneys advise them to screenshot everything, file defamation claims, and demand data logs. But few have the financial resources or the sheer emotional stamina to pursue such lengthy and often frustrating legal avenues. More often than not, people simply move away, swapping one suburb for another, hoping that the next watch group keeps its paranoia offline and its digital fingers away from the post button. It's a sad reality where the promise of connection and safety online often devolves into a new, more pervasive form of community-sanctioned harassment. June 2020, Orange County, California. Maria Alvarez, a dedicated school librarian, is driving home after a long day. As she navigates her familiar neighborhood streets, she notices something unsettling: a white minivan, nondescript but persistent, tailing her for 3 blocks. A shiver of unease runs down her spine. Is it a coincidence? She decides to test it, making an unexpected turn, then circling back. The minivan mirrors her movements, its presence becoming undeniably deliberate. Finally, the van flashes a magnetic amber light, not an official police light, but one designed to mimic authority. A woman in a reflective vest steps out, phone already raised, recording Maria. "Neighborhood watch," the woman announces, her voice clipped and accusatory. "We've had reports of a disoriented Hispanic female in the area." Maria, utterly bewildered and frankly offended, answers in perfect, unaccented English. "I live here. I'm going home. What is this about?" The volunteer, however, seems to have already made up her mind. She insists Maria is talking to herself and looks unstable, dismissing Maria's calm, rational explanation. The situation escalates rapidly. Within minutes, 2 sheriff's deputies arrive, summoned by the vigilant neighbor. Despite Maria showing her IED, confirming her address, and reiterating her story, the deputies make a shocking decision. They place her on a 5,150 psychiatric hold. For those unfamiliar, a 5,150 is a provision in California law that allows a person to be involuntarily detained for up to 72 hours in a locked psychiatric ward if they are deemed a danger to themselves or others, or are gravely disabled. The criteria, as Maria discovered, can be incredibly subjective. Once invoked, refusing the hold isn't an option. It's a state-sanctioned removal of your freedom, based on someone else's judgment, or in this case, someone else's misjudgment and prejudice. Inside the ward, Maria endures the dehumanizing process. She undergoes blood tests, is stripped of her personal belongings, including her shoelaces, and is forced to sleep under harsh suicide watch lights. Her privacy, dignity, and autonomy are completely eroded, all because a neighborhood watch volunteer decided she looked a certain way. Psychiatrists quickly clear her, recognizing her distress as a normal reaction to an absurd situation, not a sign of mental instability. She's released in 14 hours, but the nightmare isn't over. The 5,150 hold, a black mark on her record, now shows up on background checks potentially impacting her career and future. Outraged and traumatized, Maria hires a civil rights attorney. She sues the county for false imprisonment, arguing that her constitutional rights were violated based on a baseless accusation. She eventually settles for an undisclosed sum, a small measure of justice for a profound ordeal. Yet the neighborhood watch volunteer who initiated the entire nightmare faces no penalty. The county, in a frustrating twist, argues she acted in good faith, highlighting the dangerous legal loopholes that can protect well-meaning but misguided vigilantes. Legal experts nationwide are increasingly sounding the alarm. The 5,150 statute was never intended to be weaponized by nosy neighbors. Yet similar cases are popping up with alarming frequency. Seniors with early signs of dementia, teenagers with autism spectrum disorder, and minority individuals simply speaking foreign languages on their phones are all being reported for erratic behavior by community watch groups. Once the state labels you unstable, even temporarily, the stigma clings, a silent judgment that can follow you for years. Maria, deeply affected by the incident, now drives 20 minutes out of her way, taking circuitous routes to avoid her own block. She lives in quiet terror that another Good Samaritan will decide, based on nothing more than appearance or perceived difference, that she doesn't quite fit in. It's a chilling reminder that the path to hell is often paved with someone else's good intentions. If these stories have made you double-check your blinds or glance nervously at your doorbell camera, then you're feeling exactly what we're talking about. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss our next deep dive into when everyday systems designed for safety turn dangerous. And please, drop a comment below. Have you or someone you know ever been profiled or harassed by a watch group, digital or otherwise? Your story isn't just a story, it's a vital piece of the conversation, and it could help someone else feel a lot less alone. October 2013, Cape Coral, Florida. This isn't your grandma's neighborhood watch. This is the Citizens on Patrol detail, a group that takes community vigilance to an entirely different and ultimately tragic level. Brian Boughton, a retired Marine, is a member. Unlike the casual volunteers of traditional neighborhood watch, these citizens drive marked SUVs, often equipped with emergency-style lights. They wear Kevlar vests, a clear sign they see themselves as more than just observers. And they stream live feeds of their patrols to a private Facebook group, blurring the lines between community safety and paramilitary surveillance. One evening, Boughton is on patrol. He spots two teenagers, seemingly minding their own business, cutting across a vacant lot. To Boughton, this isn't just a shortcut, it's a possible B&E in progress, a break-in. He radios his assessment to the group, his voice tight with perceived urgency. Then, without waiting for backup or official police response, he takes matters into his own hands. He blocks the teen's path with his SUV, transforming a simple walk into a confrontation. Passenger window down, a sidearm drawn, Boughton orders the teens to the ground. Imagine the sheer terror. Two young men, expecting nothing more than a quiet walk home, suddenly find themselves facing an armed stranger in a vest, barking commands. Startled, confused, and undoubtedly terrified, they react instinctively. They run. As they flee, Brian Boughton opens fire, discharging 3 shots. One of those bullets strikes 16-year-old Jordan Davis in the back, felling him. When police arrive, they find no weapons on Jordan. Instead, they discover he was carrying a flashlight, a simple tool for a school orienteering project. His suspicious activity was nothing more than a teenage shortcut and a school assignment. At trial, prosecutors charged Boughton with aggravated manslaughter. The defense, echoing the narrative of self-defense we've heard before, argues that Brian feared for his life when the teens reached for waistbands. This common, often unsubstantiated claim is frequently used to justify the use of lethal force, especially against young men of color. The initial jury deadlocks, unable to reach a unanimous decision. A second trial is convened, a testament to the community's demand for justice for Jordan. This time, the verdict comes swiftly. Brian Boughton is sentenced to 12 years in prison. The Facebook group, once a hub for their self-styled policing, quickly deletes its page, attempting to erase its digital footprint. But screenshots, as we know, live forever, preserving the evidence of their misguided vigilantism. In the wake of this tragedy, the city of Cape Coral takes decisive action. It officially disbands the Citizens on Patrol and bans private patrols from using emergency-style lights, recognizing the inherent danger of empowering untrained civilians with the trappings of law enforcement. Yet, for Jordan's mother, these policy changes are little solace. She keeps his flashlight on the mantelpiece, its battery removed, a silent, poignant reminder. It stands as a stark symbol that sometimes the only difference between a volunteer and a vigilante, between community safety and devastating violence, is one panicked squeeze of a trigger. It's a heavy, heartbreaking truth that some lessons are learned only through irreversible loss. March 2022, suburban Phoenix. 82-year-old Leroy Watkins, a proud Vietnam veteran, sits patiently on a bus stop bench. It's early morning, and he's waiting for his 9:15 ride to the VA hospital, a routine he's followed for years. He's a little early, but he prefers to be punctual, especially for medical appointments. This quiet moment of anticipation, however, is about to be shattered. A golf cart rolls up, sleek and silent, carrying 2 residents in matching polo shirts, the unofficial uniform of many HOA watch groups. They eye Leroy with suspicion. "Why are you camping here?" one asks, an edge of accusation in their voice. Leroy, taken aback, calmly explains he's simply waiting for his bus. But his explanation falls on deaf ears. The other resident, without a word, pulls out a phone and starts snapping photos of Leroy. Within minutes, those photos are uploaded to the HOA forum with a chilling caption. "Unknown male loitering, claims to be veteran. Verify?" The digital floodgates open. Replies pour in, each one amplifying the baseless suspicion. "Call the cops," someone demands, instantly escalating the situation. "He looks like the guy who broke into my truck last month," another user claims, making a completely unfounded connection. "I carry now just in case," a third warns, fanning the flames of fear and implying potential violence. This online chatter quickly manifests in the real world. A security guard summoned by the HOA forum's frenzy arrives. He demands Leroy's ID, treating him like a criminal. Despite Leroy's age, his veteran status, and his clear explanation, the guard radios for backup. Just as Leroy's bus pulls up, its doors hissing open, the guard blocks his path. Leroy watches in despair as his ride, his only way to his crucial VA appointment, is held back until police can arrive and verify his VA appointment letter. The police eventually confirm his story, but the damage is done. Leroy misses his visit, a vital checkup for his diabetes. The stress of the confrontation, the humiliation, and the missed medical attention trigger a severe diabetic episode. He collapses at the bus stop. Paramedics are called, treating him on the spot. And yet, unbelievably, the security guard still files a suspicious occurrence report against Leroy, doubling down on the unwarranted suspicion. Leroy's daughter, furious and heartbroken by her father's ordeal, starts a petition to ban volunteer patrols from bus stops, arguing that they are doing more harm than good. The HOA, rather than addressing the root cause of their members' vigilantism, responds with a callous and indirect solution. They remove the bus stop benches entirely, claiming it's to discourage loitering. This act of hostile architecture punishes everyone, especially the elderly and those with disabilities, simply to avoid dealing with their own members' overzealous and prejudiced behavior. Geriatric psychologists are increasingly noting a disturbing trend: rising PTSD flare-ups among elderly veterans who are publicly questioned or harassed about their service. A 2022 VA study links such traumatic encounters to skipped medical appointments and even increased suicide ideation among this vulnerable population. The very cure for perceived crime, community vigilance, ironically becomes a significant health hazard for those who once wore the uniform and sacrificed so much for their country. Leroy's story is a stark reminder that suspicion, when wielded by those with even a sliver of perceived authority, can be just as dangerous and sometimes as deadly as a physical weapon. 5 stories. 5 chilling, undeniable ways the safety net of community watch programs can morph into a suffocating spider's web. Whether it's a loaded gun in the hands of an untrained volunteer, a paranoid and racially charged post on a digital app, or a state-sanctioned psychiatric hold initiated by a busybody neighbor, the underlying pattern is disturbingly identical. It's the story of ordinary people, often driven by fear or an earnest desire to protect, who are handed a metaphorical badge of suspicion. They become emboldened by vague laws, by the anonymity and reach of digital platforms, or simply by their own unchecked biases and anxieties. The original Neighborhood Watch motto was a simple, communal promise. We look out for each other. It was about shared responsibility, a collective sense of care, a friendly presence. It was never meant to be, we lock, load, and label. These incidents aren't just isolated tragedies. They're glaring symptoms of a deeper societal issue, where the lines between civic duty and self-appointed vigilantism become dangerously blurred, and where fear often eclipses reason and empathy. If tonight's deep dive has changed how you see that seemingly friendly neighbor with a flashlight, or made you think twice about what you scroll past on your local app, then our mission is accomplished. Tap that like button, share this video with someone who might still think profiling is harmless, and absolutely subscribe for more stories. The nightly news often skips or simplifies. Most importantly, we want to hear from you. Comment below. What safeguards, what training, what ethical guidelines should communities put in place so that the people watching the block don't unwittingly become the very threat they're trying to prevent? I read every single reply, and your insights are invaluable. Stay safe out there, friends. And always remember, sometimes the most dangerous thing on a quiet street isn't the shadowy figure you imagine, but the person convinced they're keeping it quiet no matter the cost.